Hello, I'm so excited to be with you here today. I'm Stefania Jimenez. We welcome you to the conversation. Today, we're going to focus on something called Bluebonnet Learning. If you haven't heard about it yet, you will. Trust me, you're going to keep hearing about it more and more because more school districts across the state of Texas are signing on to it. It's basically a public school learning curriculum that covers reading, language arts, and math. And the reason it's controversial is because of how it's using religion in its lessons. Critics of Bluebonnet say that this is Bible infused, but the Texas Education Agency says that critics are missing the entire point. All right, so we want you to familiarize yourself with what Bluebonnet is first. Our reporter, Madeline Lambert, has been doing extensive research on this subject, and she filed this report that we're going to show you right now.
It was controversial the moment the Texas Board of Education approved Bluebonnet Learning.
I was very frustrated, very horrified that this was something that people thought was a good idea.
The curriculum covers the basics math, language arts, and reading for elementary schools. But districts don't have to use it all.
So, where does the Bible come in? Well, let's start with Bluebonnet's teacher's guides, which, by the way, are available online for you to look at. The Bible is mentioned throughout the reading language arts portion of the curriculum, which you can start right here.
From lessons about the Golden Rule, the Good Samaritan, and the Book of Genesis. And that's what First Amendment advocates have a problem with. They worry that the curriculum blurs the line between teaching religious literature and promoting a religion.
The way it teaches from the Bible can definitely induce our children into believing that it's teaching the Bible as truth.
A Texas law requires public school education to include religious literature. However, the U.S. Constitution bans state and federal governments from endorsing one particular religion.
I am a Christian, and I often find myself in the position of fighting against Christian ideas that cast themselves as solutions to problems that don't exist. And this, again, is another one.
But Todd Davis with the Texas Education Agency says Bluebonnet's critics missed the point.
The material is not intended to push any religion, any single religion. It is not intended to prophesize. It is intended to build knowledge of our students, literary, cultural, and historic knowledge of our students.
School districts that implement Bluebonnet get an additional $60 per student every year. Critics are worried that incentive could persuade districts to adopt the curriculum.
When you infuse a curriculum with the Bible, that in even Texas studies actually have shown this, that it tends to be taught more like indoctrination rather than education, and it confuses kids.
The TEA says Bluebonnet mentions multiple religions, but Davis emphasizes there is no religious instruction in it.
Although many people are focused on the religious source materials, that it is a small fraction of the knowledge that's being built.
Locally, East Central ISD and Edgewood ISD have adopted the math portion of the curriculum, and South San ISD says its students will learn the curriculum next fall. Madeline Lambert, KSAT 12 News.
All right, we hope that that answered some of your questions about Bluebonnet Learning, but I know that you have so many more about how we got here and also what local school districts in our area specifically are doing in regard to Bluebonnet. We're going to answer those questions after the break because reporter Madeline Lambert is going to join us here for the conversation. Hello and welcome back to the conversation. We continue our chat now about Bluebonnet Learning, the state-developed learning curriculum for public schools. Obviously, we told you before in the last block that this is getting a lot of criticism from people who say that it is Bible infused. But first, let's take a step back to understand exactly how it is that we got here. So I'm going to go here, and this kind of takes us back to what happened in 2023. Back then, the Texas legislature passed House Bill 1605. 1605 complies with the Texas law requiring all public schools to include basic academic subjects. We're talking about math, reading, language arts, and also religious literature. And the Texas Education Agency created Bluebonnet Learning. That's who created it. And then the Texas Board of Education went along and approved it. Okay, so joining us now for part of this conversation is Madeline Lambert, our expert on Bluebonnet Learning. You spent weeks and weeks combing through the material to really understand what it is that people have a problem with and also what it is. So now let's just be totally transparent with people and explain to them who you spoke with and where you got your information for the piece that you showed us.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And so, with this story, we started with the Texas Education Agency. We
Mhm.
spoke with Todd Davis, and he basically told us the entire Bluebonnet, what the intentions are, what is in the curriculum, and where you can find it. So, the most important thing is it's available online. It's free to look at. You can look on it at home, and that's exactly how I read through it myself. And we also spoke with First Amendment advocates, so those who are, who are very proud of the separation of church and state. And then we also spoke with dozens of districts in the San Antonio area.
Okay. And you made a lot of phone calls because some of those school districts didn't get back to you, but we had to go ahead and then do this report. And so we're just letting people know that we gave people plenty of time to get back to us. Okay. So now let's go back. What exactly is Bluebonnet Learning?
Yes, so it's quite simple. It began with House Bill 1605, and essentially it's instructional materials, and it's a curriculum for schools, public schools, to take on and give to their teachers to teach for the whole school year. And it's supposed to really just be like a blueprint for teachers and make it easier. And they also worded it as high quality materials. That's what the TEA says. So they've worked over the past couple years to build Bluebonnet Learning, and now it's been approved by the State Board of Education. So it's ready to go. And it's expected to be implemented in schools this next school year if districts choose to implement it.
And that's another thing. School districts are not forced to take on Bluebonnet Learning. And that's why school districts have their own individual school district boards. And those members go ahead and vote on that and they decide whether to approve it.
Exactly. It's totally optional. And another thing, too, I want to make sure I say is that it aligns with the TEKS. So that's the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And that's really the official curriculum that's standard for all public schools. So it aligns with TEKS and it's, state board approved.
Okay, now let's get to the real meat and potatoes of this conversation, which centers around religion.
Yep.
Right. So, where does the religious part come in?
So, already off the bat, a Texas law approves religious literature to be taught in public schools. So, that includes the Old Testament and the New Testament, and it's supposed to be taught as its impact of history and literature.
Right. Not proselytizing, not saying this is the religion that you should follow, but these are religious teachings.
Exactly. So, that's a big point of what the TEA says. Bluebonnet Learning follows that. They also say that there's multiple religions included in Bluebonnet, which is true. There is multiple religions, and there's no religious instruction. So, like you said, they're not teaching one religion is better than the other. That's not the case. But what critics are worried about is that the way it teaches from the Christian Bible induces children to believe the Bible is truth.
Also, there's a disparity here that you mentioned a moment ago that Judaism and other religions are acknowledged
Correct.
in Bluebonnet Learning, but what critics say is that there's an overemphasis of Christian teaching.
Exactly. And I mean, you can look at this at home, right? It's available online for you to look at. That's exactly how I learned about it. And the way I was like, I wanted to make sure I really understood, well, if it is Bible infused, it has to be brought up multiple times. So let's find out. And I searched through the curriculum and I just searched for the Bible to see if how many times that was mentioned. And it came up dozens of times throughout the kindergarten portion. And then you can see other religions mentioned as well, but it does explain Christian Bible stories. And
Yeah.
that's what we'll see today. We'll show you some examples.
Right. So the argument is that it's overemphasized. Okay, speaking of this, so now we're going to show you two separate examples. Again, easily accessible online. These are the teacher's guides, teaching materials that they're taught. And we're going to start with this one here, which is the golden rule, right? Basically, what it teaches is don't do unto others as you wouldn't want done to you.
Yes.
Okay.
So in this kindergarten portion, it's teaching the kids to serve our neighbors and to help each other out, right? Kindness and just being a good neighbor to one another. So, in the reading that is in Bluebonnet Reading, it says there's two versions of the golden rule from the Bible, and it tells a story of Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount. So that's a biblical story, excuse me. And it mentions that there are other versions in other religions because the golden rule is taught differently in every single different religion. But the way that it teaches just the story of Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount and putting in the effort of that story, that's what people have a problem with. And they say that it kind of favors one religion.
Okay. And that's the one that we just showed you that's also right behind us right now. The next example that we want to show is the example that brings in the book of Genesis. So let's bring that up for you full so that you can take a look. Again, this is the teacher's guide. This is what they tell the teachers. Basically, it outlines how they're going to present this material to the students. But continue.
Exactly. So when it starts with this one, this is the book of Genesis of creation. But the way it's mentioned in this portion of the curriculum is it's about students will describe different types of artwork. So the whole point here is art is inspired by religious beliefs. That's what the text is teaching students. So it begins with ancient civilizations that made pottery, and that's what you can see in the top left of your screen. And then it goes into the Garden of Eden, and that's that picture that's on the bottom left. And then as you continue to read what they're saying, begin to read from the book of Genesis, which includes how God created the light, how God created the sea. And they even ask the students to repeat back the sequence of events in the book of Genesis.
And it gets into also that's creationism
Yes.
versus evolution.
And that's interesting because that's more science, right? You know, that's where you learn about evolution. And of course, if your 5 or 6 year olds are at home, they're going to be asking you a ton of questions. And if they're learning this in school, the questions are just going to keep coming. Where do kids come from? So that's where our critics that we spoke with, that's what they have a problem with.
Okay, and the examples that we just showed you a moment ago, we're also going to have those readily available for you so that you can access those online on our website, ksat.com. But you can also, it's right on the TEA's website where you can find this material. The other part that is controversial is the money, the incentive part of it. You have a lot of cash-strapped districts across Texas. There were more than 1,200 of them. And the critique is that they might be incentivized by the fact that if they take on this curriculum, which again is not required for school districts to take on, but if they do, they'll get extra money.
Exactly. So, baseline, if districts choose to adopt this or any portion of the curriculum, they automatically get $60 per student per year. Now, it breaks down as $40, right? So, it starts with $40 per student per year. And if they choose to buy the textbooks, they want the printing, the actual physical print of the teaching materials, the student materials, that's an additional $20. So, in total, it's $60 per student per year. And this is on top of the additional funding that they already receive from the state. And the people that I spoke with are worried that this incentive will persuade districts to adopt the curriculum because, like we mentioned, cash-strapped districts, they're going to want that extra financial aid.
Okay, I want you to stay right there because we're going to continue this conversation. When we come back, we're going to discuss the local school districts that have already decided to adopt Bluebonnet and also why the Bible infused criticism doesn't necessarily apply to them. So stay right there and we'll see you on the other side of this break. Welcome back. We hope that you're enjoying our conversation about Bluebonnet. Our reporter Madeline Lambert joins us again because we still have plenty to get through. And we need to talk about the local school districts that have taken on this curriculum. Another thing, we emphasized this before, that school districts are not required to take on Bluebonnet. And even if they do take on Bluebonnet, they're not required to take the reading, language arts, and math portions of the curriculum, right?
Correct. It's 100% optional. But right, we mentioned the incentive if districts do choose to implement it. But we reached out to a ton of districts around our area, dozens. Of course, not all of them got back to us, but these are the ones that did that we know are implementing Bluebonnet Learning. So let's start with East Central ISD and Edgewood ISD. They've confirmed that they are taking on the math portion of the curriculum. So this is not including those examples we mentioned to you, right? So math would just simply be addition, subtraction.
No religion included there.
Exactly. And Judson ISD got back to us and said it's considering the math portion. And while South San ISD, this is the district we've been following with the new state approved superintendent, he told us that they have approved to buy Bluebonnet Learning materials, and come this summer, they will audit the curriculum and see which parts they actually want to include this school year. So it could just be the math, it could just be the reading language arts, it could be all of it. So we will follow that story for sure to see what they actually decide to do.
Okay, and I'm sure that when we were talking before about all of the different things that are included in the teacher's guides, I'm sure parents have gotten curious and they want to look up this material for themselves. So we made it super simple for you. Maddie's article, she filed one for our website, ksat.com, and I'm going to show it to you right now. If you go on our website, ksat.com, that's what you're going to see at the top. If you scroll down that page, you're going to have different links to where you can access all of the different teaching materials that teachers would have access to if they are working for a school district that would require them to teach Bluebonnet.
Exactly. And you will also see the districts that did get back to us that said they are not implementing a Bluebonnet learning curriculum. So that includes Alamo Heights, Floresville, Lavernia, Northside, Northeast Side, and Schertz-Cibolo Universal City. These are the districts that got back to us that said they are not implementing Bluebonnet learning. As well as Southside ISD just got back to me today, and the district said they're going to continue to review the curriculum and they're going to see if they will implement it. So they're considering it, but there's no decision made yet. So.
Okay. And the reason why a lot of these school districts are sort of in flux when it comes to Bluebonnet Learning is because they are probably not going to be teaching this until the fall of this year.
Exactly. And it's new, right? The State Board of Education approved this in 2023. So it's all still very new. Districts will, if they choose to implement it, will be this fall, exactly like you said. So I think a lot of districts this summer are going to really go through it. Like South San ISD, they're going to audit the curriculum and see if they want to implement the curriculum.
Okay. Madeline Lambert, thank you so much for being with us today. We value your expertise because it certainly took hours and hours of research. And for all of you out there, thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this conversation. You're the reason why we do this. We want you to stick around because we'll have plenty of more interesting conversation coming up. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching KSAT Plus.